Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Nerd Mode On, and welcome to episode 10 of Battle Reports, a video series where I'll be going over a particular weapon in Battlefield 1 and breaking down the statistics of the weapon to provide you guys with a better idea of how the weapon will perform on the battlefield. For today's episode, we're actually going to be taking a look at the Automatico M1918. However, in real life, it's more commonly known as the Beretta Model 1918. The Beretta Model 1918 is a submachine gun that entered service in 1918 with the Italian Armed Forces. This weapon was initially designed as a semi-automatic rifle because the overhead inserted magazine allowed a spent round to be replaced using only gravity. This specific weapon is thought to be the first submachine gun used as a general-issued combat weapon. The Beretta Model 1918 could be chambered in 9mm or .22 caliber. In addition to the caliber size, the weapon would be granted with a 25-round detachable box magazine. This weapon possessed the ability to achieve a 900 rounds per minute that caused death and destruction on the front lines. Now, with a brief excerpt of the history of this specific submachine gun, let's transfer back over to Battlefield 1 and talk about the available variants, considering that we do see the adoption of 3 variants for the Automatico. The 3 available variants for the Automatico M1918 are the Automatico M1918 Factory, the Automatico M1918 Storm, and last but certainly not least, we have the Automatico M1918 Trench. Now that we've established the 3 available variants, let's further dive in and talk a little bit about some of the benefits that you as a player will notice, considering that each of these variants do provide specific benefits in comparison to their predecessors. For starters, the factory variant is considered to be lightweight, which allows it the ability to recover faster from recoil, thus making it more accurate. Next in line, we have the Storm variant, which provides you with the benefit of it having less recoil compared to other variants. And last but certainly not least, we have the Trench variant, which provides you with the benefit of it having better hipfire accuracy compared to other variants. So as you may have been able to notice, each of these available variants do specifically facilitate a particular type of playstyle on the battlefield. This type of customization in comparison to previous Battlefield titles is a lot different, considering that in previous Battlefield titles you had the ability to place attachments on your weapon that would hamper or increase the performance of the weapon. However, the variant system does make that a lot more simplistic, considering that you don't really have the ability to make the weapon any worse than the base variant, considering that while the base variants are not available for players to utilize, this still means that there is a base variant for all individual weapons in Battlefield 1. Now, moving right along, let's take a look at the weapon statistics, considering that this is the most prominent information that you as a player will run into when it comes down to downing an individual player. Now, it is worth stating that we're only going to be focusing on the general information of all 3 variants. When you consider that all 3 variants do slightly differ in some specific minute cases, of course you will see some differentiation between these variants as a due result of the variant and the benefit that it has been granted. Now, with that being said, this specific weapon does have a rounds per minute clocking in at 900. This is actually comparable to the real-life counterpart that we previously talked about at the beginning of the video, where I stated that it also does have a 900 rounds per minute. The extremely high rate of fire coupled with the ease of use of this submachine gun does make it an extremely deadly weapon for aggressive players. However, one of the negative draws of this specific weapon is that it only has a 380 meters per second velocity. In the Assault class, the Hellriegel alongside the Automatico are tied as the slowest velocitied weapons that are available in this specific category. Now, as a due result of these limitations, this does mean that the Automatico is not designated for medium to long range, considering that Battlefield 1 did introduce bullet drag, which does highly reduce your ability to be effective at those distances. Now, transferring over to the damage model, this specific weapon does a maximum of 23 damage up until approximately 7 meters. Now, after 7 meters, you'll notice a gradual decline of the overall damage being outputted at range, and once we hit approximately 42 meters, you'll be doing a minimum of 12 damage per round. Now, to put this into layman's terms, all this really means is that this weapon is going to require anywhere from 3 to 9 rounds to kill an individual player. It is highly recommended to attempt to couple a few headshots in there, considering that you are granted with a 1.7 times multiplier, which of course will give you more damage per individual round. Up next, we have the magazine size, which of course we did previously talk about as well. So of course, like the real-life counterpart, it does clock in at a 25 round capacity. Now, with the high rate of fire of this specific weapon coupled with a limited magazine capacity, of course you will be finding yourself reloading this specific weapon quite often. The short reload of this weapon clocks in at 2.1 seconds, which of course is not too bad in comparison to its predecessors. Likewise, it does have a long reload clocking in at 2.8 seconds, so of course you're definitely going to be finding yourself getting back into the action a little bit quicker than you may initially expect. The hyper-aggressive nature of players utilizing the Automatico M1918 does permit players the ability to be hyper-aggressive when it comes down to pressing flags and eliminating targets on said flags. The ease of use of a weapon of this configuration means that there isn't a whole lot of physical motion that needs to be inputted by the user, considering that the high rate of fire means that you're able to melt players in quick succession. Now, while the customization in Battlefield 1 may be limited in comparison to previous Battlefield titles, of course this means that there are two available variants that are more nor less going to fit most players that play Battlefield 1. You do have the trench variant, which is extremely beneficial at those that don't really like to aim down sight, or maybe you have the hyper-aggressive playstyle that allows you to run around the map in quick succession. Now, as a due result of this, the trench variant is deemed by many players as one of the cheapest variants, considering that you definitely do not have to aim down sight while utilizing this variant, considering that it is extremely deadly in those close to medium range engagements. Likewise, you have the Storm variant, which does give you a little bit more accuracy and a little bit more control when it comes down to aiming down sight, so of course that may be a very good benefit, especially if you're somebody that's constantly aiming down sight and trying to engage people more at that medium range. So in conclusion, the devastating nature of the Automatico is a force to be reckoned with when it comes down to close to medium range combat. In addition, the Automatico has collected a new-formed reputation on the battlefield as being one of the best weapons to grace Battlefield in quite some time. In many players' eyes, the Automatico is deemed as an overpowered weapon that definitely needs to see a nerf. However, you also have players that find this weapon to be in line with its competitors due to its limited range and magazine capacity. So as you may have been able to notice, this weapon is definitely deemed as a controversial weapon, considering that it does have some positive and negative attributes that the community does recognize. Anyway guys, that's really all the information I have for you. Hopefully you found something in the video insightful and or entertaining, but until the next episode guys, this has been NMO, and I'm going to be signing out guys. Peace!